When the fog has not yet lifted, every journey begins with a warning. The world you think you see seeps in through the cracks you cannot see. The hidden door of Wabi-Sabi is like this. From the outside, it looks simple, silent, almost invisible. But as you approach, the worn marks on its surface disturb your spirit, because the root of this philosophy beats not in beauty, but in decay. You were taught imperfection is dangerous, a crack is weakness, what is old is worthless. Yet the Japanese masters knew the opposite. The beauty of a thing often seeped from its darkest place. That is why Wabi-Sabi is not a soft aesthetic. It is a hard, fragile, haunting mirror, like the inner discipline of a warrior. Looking into this mirror takes courage, because when you face your imperfection, you realize there is no way back. If you pass through this door, the mask falls, the noises fade, and only the naked essence remains. Imperfection does not stain you, it tests you. Worn surfaces, peeling paint, the faded lines of old wood. They are all the marks of past blows to the warrior's mind. Touching these marks is not contact with history, but with your own shadow. For the dark origin of Wabi-Sabi whispers this secret to you. Imperfection is a small rehearsal for death. Impermanence is not just an aesthetic concept, but the first rule of existence. Everything you hold today is decaying, fading, dissolving, and you hide behind the glittering veil of the modern world to avoid knowing this. When that veil begins to tear, you see the naked truth. Time is consuming you. Your mind has not been trained to accept this. But the samurai were. They thought of death every day, every breath, placing impermanence at the center of the mind. For only those who accepted exhaustion grew stronger. And this is where the forbidden side of Wabi-Sabi begins. Imperfection is not merely an aesthetic flavor, it is an ancient method that arms the mind. Not to make peace with your flaw, but to grasp it, master it, draw it to your side. That is the danger. Modern people fear this because to meet your imperfection eye to eye is to confront yourself, to see the shadow within. As you approach this door, the shadow coils around your feet. Are you ready? It whispers. Each step pulls you into a deeper darkness of silence. The worn surfaces no longer look ordinary. They begin to tell you something. The cold breath inside the cracked stone is like the echo of an ancient ritual. The dark teaching of Wabi-Sabi is not always spoken aloud. The masters understood it from the eyes of their apprentices, because some doors open not with words, but with vibration. And now you feel that vibration. The unease within you is a sign, the first crack where transformation begins. When fear and curiosity meet on the same line, the door opens on its own. Silence falls into your ear. This silence is not a punishment, it is a test. Every mind that crosses this door lets its old self die. Every imperfection is redefined. Every worn edge gains power, and by coming to this threshold, you have already taken the first step. Now you must know only this. If you enter this door, there is no return, for the darkness of Wabi-Sabi does not cleanse you. It leaves you bare. Those who flee from silence are lost here, but the one who fixes their gaze on the shadow remembers their essence. And as the door closes, the whisper turns into a sharp blow. True beauty begins at the place you fear the most. As you approach the true face of imperfection, your mind trembles involuntarily, because what you call a flaw is not a crack on the surface. It is a dark doorway in the unconscious. Every time you look at it, you are actually seeing an old fracture within yourself. This is why humans despise imperfection, because every eye that looks at it notices the silhouette of the truth it has been avoiding. The modern world polished and decorated this hatred. Smooth surfaces, flawless bodies, perfect lives, all of them a false temple. The walls of this temple are sterile, its lights bright, yet its interior hollow. They tried to build a place without shadows, and a place without shadows is a place without a soul. In trying to hide imperfection, humans exiled their own shadow. But as Jung said, everything repressed eventually returns, darker, deeper, more uncontrollable. By running from imperfection, you feed a monster growing in your shadow. The masters of Wabi-Sabi noticed this early. That's why they didn't hide the flaw. They opened it. They showed it. Quietly, without shame, without decoration. Because revealing the flaw was not a declaration of weakness. It was a manifesto of strength. Modern thought sees imperfection as a deficiency. Yet ancient wisdom knows that a flaw is a passage. A crack is the path through which light enters. A break allows the truth within to breathe. Hiding a flaw is sealing the vent of the soul. This is why the psychological depth of Wabi-Sabi is sharper than modern minds can comprehend. When you see a crack on the surface, you say, ugliness. A master looks at the same crack and says, story. You assume a broken object has lost its value. The master sees its spirit revealed, because a flaw is the first sign that strips existence of its mask. The imperfection of an object is the most honest part of its history. The imperfection of a human is the doorway into their shadow. Modern people hate their shadow because they believe they cannot control it. Yet Jung's shadow archetype is the source of the power trapped inside. Every urge, every fear, every anger, every shame, everything buried grows roots beneath the surface. And anything that grows roots inevitably expands. The masters knew that the unveiling of a flaw was not weakness, but surrender. Surrender is not defeat. Surrender is accepting the sight of your shadow, because every unseen shadow poisons you from within. Every seen shadow brings out your inner power. Why can't flaws be hidden? Because every concealed flaw becomes a hidden truth, and every hidden truth rots the mind. Why must flaws be shown? Because every revealed flaw is a key that breaks internal chains. The moment you stop hiding something, you stop being its prisoner. This is why Wabi-Sabi is not merely aesthetic. It is a psychological discipline of war. The modern soul cannot tolerate imperfection because every flaw reminds it of the part it is running from. But where the part you run from chases you, power cannot be born. Only fear grows. The psychology of imperfection is dangerous for this reason. Because the moment you look at it, you see yourself. And the moment you see yourself, you lose all excuses. Imperfection knows you better than you know yourself. Imperfection is a silent teacher that tears masks apart. Imperfection is the trigger that awakens the power hidden in your shadow. And now the true mechanism of transformation within Wabi-Sabi deepens. Imperfection equals power. This equation is not a simple phrase. It is a law that shapes the mental architecture of the old masters. Imperfection is power, because imperfection begins where deception ends. Imperfection is power because it is the moment you can no longer escape reality. Imperfection is power because it awakens the shadow within you. Imperfection is power because it is your most naked form, and nothing can break the strength of someone who does not fear their naked self. While the modern individual searches for power externally, the ancient masters drew power from the flaw, because imperfection was not a doorway to acceptance, but to transformation. When the masters looked at a flaw in an object, they saw not its fate, but its potential. When you look at your own flaw, you usually feel hatred. But where does that hatred come from? Often from a learned illusion. You were told for years, be perfect. Without noticing, you became a slave to perfection. But perfection is static, unmoving, lifeless. Imperfection is dynamic. A break stops you but also redirects you. A crack wounds you but also speaks. Imperfection breaks you but also rebuilds you. This is the dark secret of Wabi-Sabi. Strength is born not from beauty, but from fracture. Nothing uncracked has a story. Nothing unworn has truly lived. Imperfection is the first proof of existence, your most authentic face. And once you face your flaw, you can never return to who you were. because the moment the confrontation begins, the shadow stirs. The mind opens. An old door parts like a knot loosening. This sound is the first echo of your inner depth. And now, within this silent turmoil, a line appears. Thin, sharp, dark. This is the place where the fracture begins. And when you touch that line, the possibility of return disappears completely. This is where the real breaking begins. The path within the darkness grows narrower. This thin path was once a mental trail only warriors and Zen masters dared to walk. Here, imperfection was not seen as a weakness but as a technique, a method, a weapon, a doorway. Until now, you believed imperfection was a burden you had to carry. But the ancient masters shaped it, molded it, transformed it. They trained the flaw not with anger, but with meditative discipline, because the power buried inside the flaw could only be awakened through naked awareness. This method was never explained. The master would see the disciple's flaw, but never tell them how to use it, because imperfection does not open the same way for everyone. Each crack shows its own direction. A warrior's fear was the hidden path to his victory. A monk's darkness was the seed of his deepest enlightenment. Only the one who notices can walk. This was the essence of the ancient method in which flaws turned into strength. Imperfection, when looked at correctly, is less a teacher and more a guide. It opens to lead you to your weak point. It speaks to guide you back to the place you were wounded. That is why the masters did not fight their imperfections. They listened to them. When a warrior dropped his sword, he did not see failure. He saw the point where his mind had loosened. When a Zen master's mind split during meditation, he did not count it as defeat. He focused on the hidden need inside that split. Imperfection is not decay. Imperfection is a signal rising from within. In the ancient method, every flaw was seen as a doorway. If you were broken, you had to look at the direction of the break. If you felt shame, you had to bow toward its source. If you carried fear, you had to descend into its root, because every flaw points to your most hidden truth. The masters focused not on the shape of the break, but on the story the break was telling. Modern people cannot understand this because when they look at a flaw, they see disgrace. The master sees energy. Imperfection carries energy. When this energy is suppressed, it becomes poison. When opened, it transforms. The ancient method is the ritual of releasing the flaw. But this release is not looseness. It demands discipline. Facing a flaw is nakedness, and nakedness creates fear. The one who walks through that fear finds their own strength. This is why warriors never entered battle without knowing their flaws. They put the thing they feared most in front of them, breathed with it, walked with it. Because when you enter fear, fear changes shape. A Zen master would refine his posture, his breath, his attention for years, working on a single flaw. When the flaw is freed, it dissolves silently. When it dissolves, strength remains. When strength remains, clarity is born. This clarity is not what the modern world calls confidence. This clarity burns in the eyes of a samurai like a dark intuition, a state of knowing that needs no words. The mind of the warrior who touches his flaw no longer splits, because imperfection reveals the weakest point of the mind while simultaneously exposing its strongest. Strength forms where the break was. Attention sharpens where you were wounded. Essence strengthens where you were abandoned. Roots deepen in the moment you collapse. Imperfection does not diminish you, it gathers you. It does not break you into pieces, it unites you. This is exactly what the ancient method teaches. Do not carry your flaw. Read it. Use it not as a point of shame, but as a map. Your imperfection is a compass. To understand where it wants to take you, you must sit with it in silence. Now the questions begin, the master's questions. These questions are not gentle. These questions pierce the soul, because they do not ask you to answer. They force you to open. What has broken you the most? What emotion did that break teach you? What fear lies beneath that emotion? What need hides beneath that fear? What truth have you refused to see beneath that need? What power have you forgotten beneath that truth? These are the questions that open the gates of the ancient method. The answers strip you bare, but everything that is laid bare grows stronger because it no longer hides. The ancient warriors were strong because they refused to hide their flaws. The Zen masters were free because they stopped running from their imperfections and placed them directly before their eyes. And now it is your turn. The moment you dare to look at your flaws, they will begin to speak to you in a language you've never heard before, with a stillness you've never understood. This method is not a technique, it is a test. Its practice is not easy, but its direction is clear, and the path is single. It is your turn. When you walk through the door of imperfection, the light of the old world remains behind you. When you look back, you realize what you left was not a life, but an illusion. The shining face of perfection was merely a thin veil of mist keeping you from descending into your depths. Now the mist dissolves. The raw truth of a worn world appears before you. This world is your inner world, dark, silent, full of cracks, but for the first time real. Where perfection dies, beauty is reborn, because perfection is a mask. It freezes you, holds your breath, traps your soul with the warning, do not make mistakes. Imperfection, however, is the first cracked breath that sets the soul free. Perfection does not live. Imperfection lives. Perfection is static. Imperfection moves. Perfection is dead. Imperfection is alive. That is why the final gate of philosophy announces the death of perfection quietly, almost without ceremony, because it is an idol that must die. What begins with its death is you, again, different, deeper, not like a Zen master, not like a warrior, but like your own essence. The oldest teaching of Wabi-Sabi says, when every crack comes together, the essence appears. Most people believe this is an aesthetic line, but it is actually an encryption of existence, because a human being is not the sum of their pieces. They are what hides behind those pieces. The light that leaks through the crack is what makes you who you are. Your worn side is what completes you. Your broken side is what makes you real. Where your imperfections meet, a wholeness forms, not because it is perfect, but because it is honest. This is the moment you see yourself without hiding for the first time. Masks dissolve, roles fall, false grandeur disappears. Silence begins. This silence is not a dead silence, it is heavy, deep, and wise. As if a temple door long muted in your mind creaks open. Inside there is no ornament, no statue, no light, no ritual, only bare stone, only shadow, only breath. With this breath you suddenly realize, imperfection did not diminish you, imperfection awakened you. The place where your flaws converge is the place where you are born. You are not worthless because you are broken, as the modern world teaches. On the contrary, you have gained true shape because you broke. Nothing that never fragments has form. Nothing that never wears has depth. Nothing that never suffers damage has memory. Neither do you. Life deepened you because it broke you. It clarified you because it made you lose. It did not harden you because it wore you down. It simplified you. Simplicity is the summit of Wabi-Sabi. This simplicity is not a sense of transience. It is a determination of existence, as if your soul drops its weight and sinks into the earth. You become lighter because you stop hiding. And when you stop hiding, perfection collapses. The death of perfection is really the death of the pressure within you. You no longer have to be something. You no longer have to cling to a role. You no longer have to protect an image. You are as free as your crack, as real as your wear, as wise as your aging. This awareness rings in your mind like a quiet bell. It leaves a long echo afterward. That echo is your new voice. There was once someone who hid their flaws, who carved themselves down to survive. Now there is someone who carries their imperfections, but knows their meaning, not their weight. You, drawing power from flaws, is not a victory moment. It is a moment of birth. The war is not won, the soul is won. When you can look at your own shadow, you ignite your own light. This light does not blaze, it does not burn, it does not show off. This light is dim, like an old lamp in the corner of a Japanese temple. It simply exists, and with its existence, it calls you. The old you is now gone. The one who worshipped that idol of perfection has quietly dissolved. In their place, a more bare, more rooted, more real being has been born. Your imperfections have united, and your essence has emerged. This transformation ends not with noise, but with a whisper, because great awakenings do not shout, they whisper. And now the whisper says this: your imperfections are your purest form. At the end of this journey, ask yourself, which flaw changed me the most? Which fracture guided me? Which worn part of me still speaks? Write it in the comments. If this narration opened something within you, if it cracked open a door, subscribe to the channel. Because here we will continue deepening that ancient path where imperfections turn into power. If you want to write something but cannot find the words, just write this in the comments: my crack is speaking.